Well, hey, everybody, welcome to the Seeing Ability podcast, where we're having a conversation about the world of people with disabilities. And that's going to involve sometimes talking to adults or teenagers who are growing up or grew up as a person with differences, parents who are raising those kids, and a lot of individuals that support this community, whether it's folks in education, nonprofits, healthcare. First of all, we know you got a lot of choices when it comes to listening. So thanks for tuning in to See Ability. I'm really excited to have Mary Elizabeth Jackson and her daughter Lily. Ladies, thanks for being here.
We're so happy to be here together.
Thank you for having us.
Great to have you. Well, my listeners know we like to get to know you outside of this disability conversation, just a little bit about you ladies. So I'm going to ask the fast four. Now, that's brought to us by my friends at Reliable Tech Help. So for your tech needs, reach out to them. They're at 502-797-7399. Question number one, we'll start, I wouldn't say ladies first. We got two ladies, but I'll start with youth, with Lily. What's your favorite food?
Have you ever had tiramisu?
Oh yeah, good stuff. Tiramisu. Like, okay, starting off with the sweets. I like it.
That's
Okay,
your favorite food.
Stop. That's what I can think of.
Mary, how about you?
Oh gosh. I love a really healthy, gorgeous salad and grilled chicken. I think that's one of my favorite meals.
Okay, two extremes, salad and grilled chicken,
Yes,
tiramisu. I love it. Okay,
yes.
we'll stay with you, Mary. If we looked at your playlist, what kind of music would be on it?
Oh my gosh. That's a hard question in our family because our musicality is so wide.
Yep.
I would say in the evenings it's going to be meditation and calming for my son and everyone in the family. But I would say I will never stop being tired of the 70s and 80s, disco,
Okay.
dance, all that stuff because I'm an 80s kid. So
All right, Lily, music for you.
Movie scores.
movie scores.
Oh, I love it. Very
I
cool.
listen
Well,
to
that's a
those.
good transition into our next topic. What's the favorite? We'll stick with you, Lily. Favorite TV show, movie you've seen recently, a book you're reading? What are you consuming that you're enjoying?
That's hard. I watch a lot of stuff.
Yes.
Um,
Okay.
She's an animation, so she watches a lot of
yeah.
animated stuff.
Okay.
I have my favorite TV show on Netflix it's animated, but it's called Troll Hunters. It's
Okay.
supposed to be like a kid's show, but it is definitely written for all ages, and it has a brilliant plot. It's
I
um,
love it.
it's
Okay.
amazing.
We'll have to check that out. What about you, Mary?
Mm. Well, um, I just got done watching a true story on Netflix that was really great, and I'm drawing a blank on I want to say it's called Two Hearts, and
Okay.
it's based on a true story, so you just have to watch it. It really is incredibly written. It's really good, and then I also watched Four Seasons with Tina Fey, and that was
There
it's
you
a
go.
remake of one. It's a remake from the 70s, I think.
I feel like we're doing a little Netflix promo. That's always
Oh
good.
my gosh, I
Okay.
know they need to
So
pay
so
us,
what
but
about for you, Lily, a bucket list destination somewhere in the world you've wanted to go, but you have not been yet?
Iceland. I want to go
Iceland.
to
Okay.
Iceland. Yeah.
Mary?
I'm going to say Hawaii
Yeah.
or the mountains to go into a Tibetan hut, to visit with the monks. I would love to talk to them. So,
Okay, everybody's thinking travel right now. Okay,
yeah.
well, love getting to know you guys with the fast four. Let's talk a little bit, Mary, maybe a way of introduction, this world, this conversation about people with differences. How did you find yourself entering into this? And just give us a little backstory on you and Lily.
Sure. Well, actually, it began in my childhood. I had no idea that it would affect my grown-uphood. My mother worked in the 70s. She went to work at college in Orlando at Valencia and went into the disability department, not knowing what she was doing. All these funds were coming in, all the laws were coming in. And so she started writing grants and getting all this money, and she created all these programs for students with disabilities that are still used around the country actually today.
Wow.
So when I was growing up and I was, high school, middle school, at any day of the night, we'd have somebody at our house, maybe cerebral palsy, blind, deaf, in a wheelchair, having a meal at our home. And I had no idea the impact that would have, and nor did I ever know I'd be an advocate. And that did not begin until I had my children. And my oldest was 18 months and having all kinds of sensory issues. And I went to the pediatrician and said, what is wrong with my child? I can't get her to eat this. She won't wear this. She will only wear this. Nobody can touch her, all these things. And that's where my journey began as an advocate parent. And it's been a very long journey for just close to 25 years now. And it increased with each child, with Lily and my son both being on the spectrum, nonverbal, having to, go through all the early diagnosis and therapies and overcoming all kinds of stuff, all the way to trying to change the law in the state that we live in. So, it's been a very long journey. And now I've been an ambassador advocate with Autism Tennessee since about 2018. Done a lot of work with sensory spaces and sensory awareness, education for early signs and symptoms of autism. I'm a trainer for them now, and we are just branching out. Just got a grant from the Predators to create a mobile sensory unit. So that is super exciting. Just had a meeting yesterday about that, so that's really exciting.
So what an interesting perspective that you had that awareness, unlike some kids, because of the work of your mom, and you were kind of really probably had a heightened awareness and probably a heightened understanding and acceptance of you. You didn't have as much othering of people, you just saw them probably as people but you probably doing that work didn't necessarily expect to be in it yourself, kind of the club most of us don't plan to join. That throws a lot of people a curveball. To what extent was that journey of acceptance, the range of emotions that come with, I'm going to have kids who are on a different path? What was that like for you? And in the work you do, what do you see it with other parents? And what advice do you have for parents of like getting through that initial stage when they get a diagnosis and they maybe go down a rabbit hole of worry about the future?
Well, I'll start with that to begin with, because what I tell people now whenever I'm training or talking or advocating for someone is that it is you basically have to go through the 12 steps of grief processing. That's exactly what it's like. Because first of all, if you have a diagnosis of a child in utero or it happens after, a lot of times kids they don't have those true visuals that something's going on till they're 18 months, they're 3 or 4, even older. And so then we're getting this diagnosis, and for a parent hearing there's something wrong with their child, and that's in quotation marks, right? Because it's not really wrong with their child, it's just what the world says is wrong.
Right.
But it says that, okay, our life is going to be different, and now we have to think differently outside the box. If you have a child who's blind, do you need to learn the way of life through the child who's blind so you can help them? Yes. It is the same thing for a child with needs, whatever it is, ADHD, or if they have some sort of if they have anxiety or they have depression, if they're deaf, it doesn't matter, if they have Down syndrome, any of those things means we are relearning things in our life as an adult. So I tell you, as a parent, you need to go through those steps for yourself, because as a mom, we go through, what did I do wrong? Did I eat something wrong? Did I drink something wrong? Did I think the wrong things? What did I do to create this with my child? But once you can get through that, your biggest ally in your life is to empower yourself by education of what's happening, so that you can then become this empowered parent to empower your child and to become a victor instead of being a victim through the whole thing, because it's so easy for us to go to that victimhood and to feel sorry for ourselves and our child, who now is we consider broken. I can't fix this, or my child, they'll never get married or have children. Maybe they'll never move out and live on their own. Maybe they'll never talk. So you really need to have grace with yourself. You need to educate and make sure your spouse is like there with you through the whole thing, and to educate the family. And if you have family members, who a lot of people do, that don't believe in it, don't buy into it, you just, bless them. And if they try to talk you out of going to get a diagnosis, your kid's fine, don't worry about it. You have to listen to that mother instinct inside. What is that telling you? That is your direct line of information of what's actually going on with your child. And so you have to listen to that. So we have to become intuitive as parents.
Yeah, I love that. I think for a lot of parents, you mentioned the stages, you mentioned the grief, and I think some people, not only do they have those emotions, they also have a healthy dose of guilt for having those emotions, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
not feeling like it's wrong to feel like, gosh, this is going to be a challenge and this is overwhelming. So there definitely is a process. And I love what you said about giving yourself grace as you move through that. You mentioned early childhood and stuff. And I think speak to us about how it's played a role in your work, the importance of maybe not discarding those gut instincts that something's going on and getting testing, getting evaluation, early intervention. How important is that? And how much of a problem is it when people maybe listen to others and just kind of like sweep it under the rug? Everything's going to be fine. Every kid develops differently.
Right. And that happened with my first two kids, actually. My oldest, when I went in at 18 months and I said, why is she doing what's happening for her? And the pediatrician said, oh, she's fine. She'll outgrow it. She's 25 this July and still has a lot of sensory challenges. So we've learned things through her life to help teach her tools so that she can function, in life and society. She's learned to acclimate and overcome things. With my second daughter, the early intervention services came through the preschool and tested her. So at 2.5, they told me she was at an 18-month-old level. She was delayed. And I had one of my girlfriends say, oh, don't listen to them. They just want money from you. So I sat on it for a little while, because even though I'd been around so much, this was something new, and I didn't know anything, right, when it came to what was going on with Lily. And so I waited for a little bit, and then I was at church, and I was in the 2 and 3 year olds, or 3 and 4 year olds, and these little kiddos came in with Lily, and they were just talking up a storm and telling me things, and I went, okay, I need to call these people and I need to have her tested. And so that was kind of it's like God said, you need to do this for her, and so I listened to that. And what I can say is, and I can't say it enough, if I could get on a mountaintop and scream and shout it and put out the biggest billboard anywhere, is to have your child, if there's something that's going on that doesn't feel right, it doesn't seem right, it seems a little off, doesn't mean they're bad or wrong, doesn't mean you are. It means that you need to have this child tested just in case they may need services for just a little while that will help them overcome whatever their challenge is. And for two of my kids to be nonverbal or delayed, to now be in college, and the other one functioning like all the other kids in 6th grade, that's a testament to what early intervention does and the diagnosis, getting it. Because the earlier it's gotten with a child, the easier it is for them to overcome challenges like maybe verbal challenges or sensory challenges or motor skill challenges. Because the later you wait, like 8 years and older, it's sometimes those things are almost impossible to overcome. So that's why early intervention, because the brain is still growing. So it's so easy at that age to overcome so many things, and it may not be quick. I mean, my son has just turned 12. He, for the first time in his life since 18 months, does not have OT in speech. That tells you you just have to be patient. But the key is it's not about you, it's about your child and what they need. That's the most important thing. So I had to, and my journey's been a little different because Lily had an extreme situation happen in her pre-K special education classroom, and a real trauma that she experienced that the whole family went through. And we went to court and we're in a battle for 3 years with 6 other families. So my whole life changed, her whole life changed. It changed our family. And so my advocacy journey completely pivoted at that point. And so when I say listen to your gut instinct, advocate for your kid, go in and do what you have to do. And you can advocate for all different kinds of things. My oldest didn't need the same thing as Lily and my son did. My oldest needed help when she went to college because the college was not ADA compliant. And so we had to ask them to build a ramp at her dorm so she could get in and out with her wheelchair. She had to have an unexpected surgery. So you don't ever know what your child's going to need. But if you don't talk and you don't speak up and you don't say something and you don't research, then you're in a way you're failing your child and yourself, right?
Right. Well, and maybe some of the resistance with people saying, oh, it'll be fine is kind of an old school way of thinking of like, we don't want to find out that there's something wrong, right? We don't want our kid to get a label. We don't want that to be a defined path for them. And what I hear you saying is like, no, we want to find out what's going on so we can help them in the best way possible. And the goal in many cases is for them to overcome a lot of these challenges or live as independent a life as possible. It's not a bad thing to find out what's going on.
No, but look at it this way, Jim. If you go to the pediatrician with your kid, you got to find out, do they have a cold? Do they have flu? Do they have strep? What do they have going on? So you can give them the antibiotic if they need it, or you just treat it virally. And you don't know unless you go. And that's a label,
Right.
basically, right? So it's
Yeah.
the same.
But that label doesn't have the stigma, I guess. Maybe that's the
No,
resistance.
it doesn't. And there's so much misinformation out there in the world right now. So we want to correct that information that's out there. It's like autism is not catching. Somebody cannot catch it. It is not a disease. It is not like my kid hangs out with your kid and then they all of a sudden are autistic. I mean, that's not the way it works.
Not
Yeah.
contagious.
No, not
Yeah.
transferable either.
Well, Lily, that's a good segue to you is what are some of the public perceptions that you've encountered as a teenager? I guess you're in college now, is that right?
Yes.
And how is that? Have you seen that play out as far as how people see somebody who shows up a little differently in the world?
I definitely seen it like within my own generation, my friend group, that it's very like, oh yeah, okay, you're autistic, that's
It's
cool.
much more
It's very
acceptable.
much accepted.
Yes.
And
And
at
the
least,
young adult.
yes.
Yes.
But I have found some of my friends who, like in my department mainly
Mhm.
because we tend to be more on the creative side or like super techie side of stuff. I've noticed at least. But one of my friends, she was like, I think I might be autistic and I've just never been diagnosed. And like, she went home to her parents and she was like, I think I'm this. And she was like, our parents were like, oh yeah, we know that. We just decided to never tell you. I was like, what?
Mm.
Another one of my friends
It's an
who
old school
I've
way of
been
doing it.
very close with for a very long time, she is starting to see like, I think I might have autism and ADHD. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like I'm starting to be able to see it in my own friends. Um, and she went to go tell her mom, and she was like, no, no, you don't have that. No. And like, we don't have to worry about getting you diagnosed, and it's something that can be fixed. Like it's a disease.
Mm.
And I'm like,
Right.
So she has friends who call me
yes,
and
I
talk to
do.
me for
I'm like,
guidance,
talk to
for
my
help.
mom. She's an
Yeah.
advocate. Oh my word, I'm so sorry that your parents
Yeah.
treat you that way. It's not like a disease, and I've also found that those who have parents that actually go get them diagnosed, even though they are an adult now, it really helps them understand themselves better. Like, oh, okay, so maybe this is how I should fix my schedule of work so that I can function better.
It can go down
Right.
to that basic of a
Yeah.
thing. Because I perceive the world this way, how can I make life easier for myself? Like, am I a lister? Do I need to have a list? Do I need to have a calendar? Is that going to organize me better? Because I
Yeah.
don't have the ability to organize myself. Instead of beating yourself up, this is where I feel like it's a disservice to not help a child. Because then what comes into play is their self-esteem goes down the toilet.
Yeah.
Then maybe they go down a path in their life they never thought they would because they feel like they're a crap. They're just, excuse me for that word, but they're not going to amount to anything.
Yeah.
Or they don't feel good enough about themselves to try for anything. So that's where I feel like, that's another reason that diagnosis and education are so vitally important to the empowerment of a child. And it helps us to understand ourselves more. And you hear, like, I hear adults say when they're diagnosed at 20, maybe they're 30 years old, maybe they're 40, and they're like, my gosh, this explains me to myself for my entire life, and then they can kind of work backwards and unravel all these belief systems they have about themselves to be in a healthier space.
Like, oh, that's why I thought that way. Oh, maybe that's why I didn't learn the same way the kids did. Maybe this is why my brain worked this way.
Maybe this is
stuff
why
like
I
that.
haven't had a really healthy relationship. I haven't been able to be in a good
Yeah.
relationship with someone,
That too.
Yeah. So, and it might explain your parents. Maybe this is why, there's a
Yeah.
difficult relationship with your parents, because definitely your parents probably were never diagnosed, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So,
But how powerful to hear that of in some cases, like you said, for adults or young adults that get diagnosed, it kind of is almost like a key to unlock. There were these
it's a
things that just didn't make sense But I love the two spectrums of like their parents are like, oh yeah, we of course, and then that other denial one of like, no, no, you don't have that. Kind of almost like we don't want to say you have something wrong with you. That same probably fear that keeps younger parents from getting their kids diagnosed. A question I want to ask you guys a little bit about setting the bar and expectations, but first we want to take a short break. When you have a kid who is different, all your ducks need to be in a row, especially your money. Cam Howell with Primerica knows the joys and challenges as he and his wife raise their medically fragile son, Brooks. Cam brings over 13 years of experience to help clients be protected, have a plan for the future, reduce debt, and connect to resources. Get your financial house in order so that you can enjoy every moment with your child. Reach out today at 523-5075. And now back to the show. The idea of setting the bar is always challenging for parents. You've got that very helicopter parent that your kid and never let them fall down. And you've got the other one that's like, jump in the deep end, you'll figure it out. And then when you add in raising a kid who maybe has differences, maybe sometimes has a struggle with certain things, it can affect how much parents do or don't step in. Mary, I'll start with you. What role did that balancing act play in your parenting? And then as an advocate working with a lot of different parents, what do you see play out, and what is your typical advice you give to parents on when to step in, when not to?
Yeah, that's a very complicated question because every child, autism is not linear, it's a spectrum for a reason. So your more high functioning child is not going to need as much from you as a child who is lower functioning, or just maybe doesn't have an understanding of the world and their social skills are really behind and they need that help. For me, it's a little different because I actually had a child experience trauma at the hand of her teacher who I entrusted her care to. So at that
Right.
point, my entire world changed. So I had to make my way back from that. I'm still a very overprotective mother, and more so than I would have been if that had
Sure.
happened. So my kids have been in environments where I've made sure to know who is involved. I've been very involved myself, whether it's through PTO or teaching or subbing or helping in the classroom or whatever it is. I know I had to do that with her for many, 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 many years because it was the only way I could keep her in school, because we went through a horrendous time of trying to get her to just feel safe at school. So my path is a little different in that way, and I would never wish that on any family or any child or any parent. It's the reason I, worked to try to create law to protect kids in a different way, in the classrooms and things. But I would say that if your child has a diagnosis, the biggest thing is to not ever tell them they can't do something because of this. Like, you can't learn how to ride a bike because you're autistic. Maybe you don't have a good sense of balance. Your motor skills are not good. I know my son just turned 12, and this is one of the things we're going to conquer this summer. Finally conquered the bike riding because he needs to know how to do that. So I think it has to be a healthy balance of, letting them do things and learn, but then also being that cushion and that protection for them. And it's really hard because if you're not a parent who has a child, like maybe they have Down syndrome, maybe they're nonverbal, and you want to try to entrust them in the care of someone else, that is a very scary thing. So it is a no judgment zone as far as I'm concerned. We do not need to be telling somebody how to parent their kid,
Right.
even therapists in a case like this, because if you've had a situation where your child has been neglected by someone else, you're going to be even more protected. And it's hard for us to let go of a child with needs, like on the extreme side, if they have extreme needs, into the care of someone else because they're not their parent. They don't know their child the same way that the parent does. So I think that for each of us, it's different, and we have to kind of keep a check with ourselves and to learn that balance. And if not, then I think seek support and help, about finding that balance as a parent, but don't ever tell them they can't do something. And I do a disclaimer as long as it's legal. We want to, I don't want you to go, no, don't jump off the roof, no, don't jump off the roof. Please don't,
Right.
because
Yeah,
you have
yeah.
that wild child who wants to try it. So I think it's all a balance, Jim, and it's gonna be individualized to parents per child.
Yeah, and I can see obviously with having that particular part of your background that need to step in so heightened because that trust was broken. So that totally
Oh,
makes sense. But
totally.
then I love what you said about not planting in their mind because you have X challenge, it's going to limit you from doing something. Because the truth is, we all have challenges, right? Most of us, when we walk into a room, we're not like a person who maybe rolls into a room and everybody judges the book by its cover, right? We all have opportunities. Lily, I guess, have you seen that play out in what people think is possible and what, kind of that focus on the part of the disability word? You're going to have certain limits because you have X diagnosis, and what you've seen even yourself or others do that maybe people thought wasn't possible.
Well, I think if you took somebody who knew you from a child,
Yeah.
they would never see her doing what she's doing
No,
now.
I definitely believe that it is like possible to quote unquote overcome the disabilities because they're not like a negative thing, but it's more of like a barrier to like, oh wait, we have to take this path, but we can
Mm.
still get there. Like I could still graduate high school with a 4.0, which I did. Um, Even though I had to learn different ways in order to get there or to communicate with people, I still stutter every now and then. Have a hard time
Reading
understanding.
comprehension is hard for you.
I still have a hard time reading, but
Yeah.
funny enough, that's a funny going off from what you just said. When I
Yeah.
was younger, in elementary, I hated reading because I could not understand anything that I was reading. Like I would read it and then nothing would go into my head. That still sometimes happens, but I'm better about it now. And I remember telling myself when I was a kid, I'm never gonna be an author. Writing is stupid. As I got older, I realized how much I love to create. I expressed myself through drawing. I've been drawing my whole life. That was an
Yeah.
outlet for me during
It was a
all
process
the
for your trauma too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So because I had a hard time speaking or expressing my feelings, art became a great way for me to express myself. And I've been doing that my whole life. And I developed a love for stories. And when I got to, what was it, middle school, sixth grade, I decided that I wanted to make my own story. And I have written my own book. And because of that, I have become much better at reading and stuff like that. But I think it's definitely possible to overcome those like hurdles, I guess to say, because what sometimes what we're called to do in life is what we thought was impossible to do, even for those
Mm.
with disabilities. I think anything's possible, honestly.
I love that. And I love what you said about just because you have a particular disability doesn't necessarily mean it's a dead end. It just means we might need to find another path to get to where we want to go.
It's a journey.
Yeah,
Like,
like some other people, maybe they have the tools to get over the mountain, like they've got the hiking shoes, but you don't. But there's another path. Might be a little difficult, but they're not going to take it. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think if you think about somebody listening to this podcast today who maybe has, you're 21, maybe has a 5-year-old that's recently been diagnosed as being on the spectrum, it's probably really important for them to hear that, right? And not be putting limits on what's possible for their kid.
oh, please don't. I am begging you, please don't.
Don't ever put limits.
No, and use every second with your child that you have as a learning. That's what I did with my kids instinctively, and the enrichment of their life has been incredible. Like my son, I could barely get a diaper on him. He was like an octopus. So I chose that time to teach him his body parts and his alphabet and his letters and sounds, and he would just calm down and listen to me, and I could get that diaper changed. And look, we got a little education in there too. So those things that seem so minute really build up on one, on the other, and the other, and the other. So here's my son who came into this world and couldn't swallow, and he stopped growing in utero, and then we were prepared that he would be brain damaged and not walk. And he's had OT and speech and all kinds of help since he was 18 months old. Last summer, he had the starring role in the summer production of the theater we're in. I mean, oh my gosh.
Wow.
He shocked us all.
We
Like,
all shocked. I mean, and so for you parents out there, So when we were going into kindergarten, I went to the principal of the school that we were going to, and I said, listen, I don't know if my son can sit in class for 7 hours today. I don't know if he can sit for 2 hours, right? But we did little by little, and we let him acclimate himself. He surprised and shocked all of us. That's why I say don't put a limit on your child. So I learned from my own experience with my child thinking he can't do this. And he just, whoa, it was amazing. So I don't, I've kind of really tried to get to the place where I go, oh, I don't think he can do that, because he always surprises me.
Yeah, I love that. I love that story, but it's so natural for you that you kind of gloss over it quickly. I think it's worth repeating.
Oh,
Tell us what your son just did in the production, but then tell us about like how people saw him when he was young and they never would have imagined he could do that.
well, this is a child who, when he was in the stroller, if we walked up to somebody, he would blood curdling screaming. I mean, he was like, we didn't go out in public much for a really long time when he was young. Nobody else could touch him, nobody could hold him. He couldn't tell me he was hungry. And I did detoxing with him when he was younger. And so he had a breakthrough with his language and all kinds of things. But so people who knew him then and have watched him grow, and to be a child who I didn't think at kindergarten could sit in the classroom and learn, like be able to focus and write and take notes or learn to read. I didn't know that he was going to be able to do that, to be honest with you. And it was little by little in all the therapies that he's had and all the help. And even an OT therapist that spent the last 2 years working with him on understanding the emotions that he has and his feelings and how it feels in his body so he can talk about it. It's just been a miracle. And so last summer we've been with this theater for like 12 years now. And every summer, like school gets out next Tuesday, and then we go boom right into theater for 3 weeks, and we're all involved in it. But he tried out and was young Simba in The Lion King, and I mean he blew us away. And I mean this is my own kid, and I cried every single performance because it was just so to see him out there, a child who could not get on stage, horribly shy. He can get on stage if he's got friends with him, but he will only talk to you really if he knows you. Otherwise, he's not going to really talk to you at all. That's just you. Somebody else might think that was impossible that happened, and it did. And so that's why I say, theater is great for all kids. Even the ones who don't like it, just because it helps them overcome. Like my oldest was painfully inability. I mean, it just her shyness and her ability to talk for herself was just so much. And now, I mean, my girls, they're singers and they perform in front of lots of people. I never imagined that would happen. So the arts and music, I think, are vital to the well-being of a child and really can help you see into the soul in the window of your child who's nonverbal or has a hard time communicating or expressing themselves. So any of it is helpful.
Yeah, what a great story of like you might have thought back then, or a lot of people would thought there are only certain limits to what he'd ever be able to do. And what he's
Oh,
doing today just proves that's not the way to look at things.
right, because look, he doesn't do OT anymore. We just graduated from there. We can go back anytime we need it for him. Speech, or two, we've taken off from speech, and he's doing the full workload of the rest of his classmates, which is shocking. Now I have all things set in place for him. He does have accommodations and help, but I want him to do whatever he can. If he can rise to that occasion, I want him to. If it becomes too stressful, then we back off and we work with the team. But you have to be one-on-one as a parent with that team, and you have to be in communication with those teachers. Now, that may seem like helicopter parenting to some people, but when your child doesn't know how to advocate for themselves yet, that's your job.
Yeah, no, I love that. I feel like we could have a 3-hour episode. You
Oh my
mentioned at
gosh,
the
yes,
beginning
I know.
all these projects you're working on and sensory spaces and things. We don't have time to get to those. I might have to have you back, but I do want to ask both of you a question that I typically ask my guests kind of towards the wrap up of the episode, which is let's imagine you were brought in as a speaker. Probably both of you have or will be brought in as speaker to like a children's hospital. They've got 30 parents in the room with a variety of kids with variety of diagnoses. They're like all under 6. And we're going to totally oversimplify this. So I'll put the disclaimer of that in the beginning. But if you had to stand up there, we'll start with Lily, and you wanted to tell young parents, what would be your like keys to success raising a kid who has some kind of difference?
Okay, repeat the question because you
cut out
cut
for a
out for a
second.
second.
Oh, sorry. What would be your keys to success for a parent who was raising a kid who had some kind of difference? What would you tell them, Lily?
What helped you?
I have to think about this.
This could be kind of a combo of like you playing off each other. Mary, why don't you start, and that may help Lily
Okay.
figure out what you did with her to track.
Well, I know that acceptance and love is a big factor. You have to be accepting and loving no matter what happens. Um, because like if you shut down, like pull away, that's going to in turn hurt the child and put limits on them. Find outlets for them to express themselves. For mom, she was like Lily, Elizabeth, when we were younger, write it out, whatever you're feeling, dance it out, draw it out, go play for a little bit and get your frustrated out on the little, we had like a sandbox. I remember going out there and playing. But I know that always helped. It gave
Mm,
that sense of freedom,
yeah,
as a kid, and that just like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me expressing myself this way, you know?
yeah. I love those two things, starting with acceptance. I mean, that's a big one.
Mhm.
Just loving your child for who they are. And then the outlets so they can explore what we've been talking about, which is not
Mhm.
their disability, but their capabilities. I
Yeah,
love that.
giving
Mary,
them like freedom. They need that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Mary, she did a pretty good job. Anything to add?
Yeah.
No, I know. Well, I would say for parents, if I was talking to a group of parents, and I do this when I do trainings, you need to get support for yourself. You need
Mm,
self-care, you need self-love, you need the support of people around you, whether it is family, and if it's not family, then you go find others, in your community, and that's what you need to research for. But you definitely need to be surrounded by that, and you need to that education is just, I was reading the other day some more information about ADHD. I've got a son. I'm raising a son this time. I've already done my girl and now I've got my son coming in here, and it's like now we're getting ready to go through the teenagers. Okay, I need to gear myself with as much help and encouragement and positivity as I can, because like I had a day yesterday with him where he was like no to everything. He was grumpy, he was fussy, and I was tired. So what was my limitation on that? I was like, I am done. Like I don't want I don't want to be around your crankiness anymore, And it's like I have to step back for myself so that then I can still parent. So love those children. If you have an instinct about something is off with your child, follow that lead of
yeah,
that. Go get help. And if you may have to interview different doctors. We've had to leave a doctor because they weren't listening and go find another one. And it doesn't
yeah,
make you mean. It just means you are setting your boundaries and
Mhm.
advocating and standing up for your child and yourself. Don't let a doctor bully or push you around. Don't let a teacher do that. Don't let anyone do that when you know what's right for your child. Now, I say that with a disclaimer, Jim. We need mediation. We need to be calm. We need diplomacy. We have to learn how to, come in and have those conversations. And at the end of the day, the child is the most important. We're coming to a
yeah.
solution for the child. And then we
I
have
love that.
all of our, frustrations and stuff, we have to leave them out of there. So
I love it. I'm definitely going to have you back to talk about all these programs. I want to thank both of you ladies for being here today. And I want to thank you guys for listening. I'm sure, like me, I was kind of listening to these ladies and I like this. Would love you to rate and follow the podcast. We'd love you to like the Facebook post and please share it with other people. There's probably a parent out there who could hear what Lily was sharing, and that would really give them hope. My goals for this podcast are always that we educate. I know we all learned something today, that we give a little motivation because we all need that burst of motivation, and that we talked about support. This podcast and this conversation becomes just another layer of your village, of your community. So we appreciate you listening in today. Ladies, thanks so much for being here.
thank you so
Thank you
much.
so
Thanks for having
much.
us.
Yes.
And we'll see everybody next time. Thanks.